The state of mobile games in 2025 is just depressing. Let's take the company who created the game that I've decompiled in this video as an example. Glue has created dozens of very impactful and high-quality games over their time as a mobile game company. They have since been bought out by EA. Their last few games were all celebrity games, and now on the Google Play Store they have been reduced to 2 games, both cooking games. Like I said, it's depressing. The topic of today's video, as I'm sure you're aware by this point, is Samurai vs. Zombies the first. Okay, let me drop the monologue voice. Samurai vs. Zombies was, as I'm aware at least, the beginning of a small mobile gaming subgenre, the side-scroller defense genre. Blue ended up copying their own homework on this game with Defenders and Dragons, and then Viacom strolled in and yoinked it for a few Garfield games. I think there are a few other games too, but I can't remember them off the top of my head. Anyways, last video I spent the entire first half trying to explain the game itself, detail by detail, and then I just gave up halfway through, which, even without the giving up part, made the video flow really weirdly. So I'm gonna go back to the usual rundown and save the in-depth stuff for any future retrospectives I might do on some of the games I decompile. Speaking of which, Samurai vs. Zombies, as described before, is a side-scroller defense game. The one and only objective is to kill all enemies before they break the sacred gate. You do, however, have many tools at your disposal to achieve such task. You have a sword, a bow, many abilities, protectors, and most importantly, allies. There are tons more specifics I could get into, but that's the gist. Glue actually did a really weird and botched Windows Store port of the game, which made it work on PC, but oh man, it had a lot of problems. So I didn't even bother with it. The only thing it really had over the Android version were these keybind buttons, but I didn't really bother with that either. Anyways, in 2020, I also tried to make a playthrough series on it, and it didn't go great.
Bro, that's child slavery.
Anyway, after recording Facecam for the first and second SV2 vids, it was laggy and then it froze with the screen on. My wallpaper still had motion, however.
Long story short, my phone literally broke for like a whole month because I tried to record a Facecam. This decomp actually first began in January 2023, where I immediately gave up due to severe skill issue-itis. Then I tried again in December 2023, and because I was forced into using a terrible version of Asset Ripper, we'll get to why, I had to use something even worse than pre-0.2 Asset Ripper, DevX. I did not pay that price tag, and I will not elaborate on that, or else YouTube will give me stricosis, if you get my drift. DevX sucks anyways. I only had to use it because Asset Ripper couldn't figure out these prefabs. I also never fixed light maps, and the decomp is overall just inferior in many ways. Okay, so as it turns out, I actually first did it in September 2022, and seeing as that was before my first episode of Decomp and Recomp, you can guess how well that went. But then, in December 2024, directly preceding Star Warfare's release, with U4X A Ripper, now named U Legacy Ripper, in hand, I dropped the game into the GUI and everything broke. You know why? Because Asset Ripper's magical source-generated code doesn't work with any Unity version below Unity 3.5. What Unity version is Samurai vs. Zombies made in, you ask? Why, Unity 3.4.2, of course. The version right before Unity 3.5? So, guess who had to manually add support for it in the source-generated code that I had to decompile that takes over a minute to compile and test? Me, of course. The only reason the old terrible version of Asset Ripper was able to decompile it was because Asset Ripper's mystical source-generated DLL didn't exist at the time, so it just had manual implementations of like every class. Which yeah, that's a terrible system, but why cut off the Unity support at 3.5? Well hey, at least it worked. And now all I needed to do was get rid of all the terrible Android plugin code that some random contractors wrote, then use my lightmap material generator I made for Star Warfare, and do a lot of testing, where many bugs and porting issues were found, mostly by Virginia and Met, again. Something that was also discovered is you can literally hot swap any entity, their weapon, their stats, and whatever else. So yeah, that's pretty fun to screw around with. But it's also led to an ongoing branch of the game by Kojo Bailey, which already seems to be going pretty well, which is very cool to see. Even on the Call of Mini side of things, Toon Link is managing my old Call of Mini Zombies multiplayer branch, which was cancelled about a year ago. All of this is why I do decomps. All these communities, these games I care about, they're all wastelands now. Lastly, the controls are explained in the tutorial this time, but just in case, I've left them in the description. Make sure to join the Decomp and Recomp Discord so you can help us test and join us in the battle against mobile game death. And we just got our first Patreon member, Noel Sanchez, on the highest tier. Thanks, man. Reminder that all the money that I get from Patreon goes directly back into Decomp and Recomp. Managing servers, keeping things online, just anything towards Decomp and Recomp that costs any sort of money. Anyways, downloads and the installation tutorial on the Discord server are all in the description. And that's Samurai vs. Zombies. And in March, you know what's next. Squad is next. For real this time. Alright, I know I said squad is next, and it is! Okay, I know I've kind of become the boy who cried wolf on that, but I finished nav meshes, so I have no excuse this time. See y'all sometime this March. Goodbye.